We have new reporting tonight on the case of General Michael Flynn. Flynn, you'll recall, once ran Defense Intelligence, and the president was elected in 2016, and Flynn became the first national security advisor. He was also the first Trump official to tumble from office in disgrace. It was just days into the administration. His crime was allegedly lying to FBI agents about a phone call with the Russian ambassador. The details seem irrelevant now. They were always irrelevant. But Flynn pled to a felony, mostly because the feds threatened to charge his son with unrelated crimes unless he did. His lawyers are busy sucking up to the special counsel's office and did not do a capable job of defending him. Flynn wasn't just forced out of office, though. As noted, he was criminally charged. Then he was financially ruined. He was publicly humiliated to sell his house and leave the state. That seemed to be the end of things, except it was not the end of things. Flynn still has not been sentenced, and he's now fighting to have the entire case against him thrown out. His guilty plea vacated is the word they use. Last Friday, his legal team successfully compelled the Department of Justice to file new court documents in the case. Here's what they found. According to Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, those documents contain exculpatory evidence for the general, and not just evidence that Flynn was innocent. It's far more damning than that. The evidence, Powell says, shows that the FBI was plotting, and that's not an overstatement apparently, from the very beginning to entrap Flynn. And they said it out loud in internal communications. According to Powell, quote, since August 2016 at the latest, partisan FBI and DOJ leaders conspired to destroy Mr. Flynn. These documents show in their own handwriting and emails that they intended either to create an offense they could prosecute or at least get him fired, end quote. Now, there are about 5 pages of documents apparently in question. They are not classified. They're only held from public view because of a judge's order. We're hearing tonight that they could be released as soon as tomorrow. We hope so. We'll find out then whether this is true. If it is true, that would be good news, of course, for General Flynn. But for the rest of us, it would mean that the FBI has been shockingly corrupt and politicized. And that behavior would almost certainly require criminal charges and an overhaul of the organization. Andy McCarthy is a former federal prosecutor, author of the book Ball of Collusion. He joins us tonight. Andy McCarthy, thanks so much for coming on. So I spoke to 2 people today who have seen the documents, and both of them have a position on this, I'll say, though we'll find out very soon whether they're telling the truth or not. But both of them characterized it essentially in the same way. One of them said, I'm quoting, has been in this business a long time, I've never seen a clearer-cut case of entrapment than this one. If that's true, wouldn't it be a crime for the FBI to withhold that information under Brady from the defense in Flynn's case?
At the very least, Tucker, it's an illegality. Whether it's actually a crime depends on whether they made affirmative representations to the court that turn out not to be true. But for sure, there's a lot of things that are obviously not legal that are not in the penal code. But let's start with it's an illegality and a serious abuse of power for sure.
So the FBI has known about this. Chris Wray has run the place for years now. Why wouldn't this information have made its way to Flynn's defense team or to Flynn himself before he pled?
Tucker, when they took his plea, they tried to do it in a way that was structured not to have to fulfill their Brady obligations. It's pretty common in a plea agreement that it's explicitly written into it that once you plead guilty, you waive your right to ask for any discovery from the government. And I think that's what they've hidden behind this entire time. The problem they had was they ran into a judge who didn't think that was an enforceable provision. So as a result, they've been on the hook to produce the discovery. And the discovery puts them in a humiliating light, and they obviously haven't wanted to produce it. But to just go to the point that you opened with, I've had many cases involving witnesses where you have a recorded conversation, as happened with General Flynn. If you're not trying to entrap someone or you're not trying to bring them into a perjury trap, what you simply do, especially I would think if you were dealing with a 33-year heroic combat veteran and commander of the United States, what you would do is you bring him in, you play the tape, and then you ask him, what did this mean? What did that mean? If you bring him in under circumstances where you have the tape and it doesn't need explanation and you're asking him what was said, I can't conceive of any reason to do that other than to hope that he'll get it wrong. And then you have a basis to say that he made false statements. I just, having done this a very long time, I can't wrap my brain around that.
Well, if Peter Strzok, who, as we know, and it's been proved, is an open partisan, is the one conducting the interview, doesn't that suggest that maybe there was a political motive here?
Well, I thought there was a political motive all along, Tucker, because as I asked at the time that General Flynn was terminated, which was, I guess, February of 2017, when he was ousted as Trump's national security advisor, what was the good faith factual basis for conducting this investigation? I don't see any evidence of a crime. I don't see any evidence of any reason to treat this guy as a criminal defendant. So this is pretty blatantly political to me from the start.
It sure seems that way. Andy McCarthy, I hope you'll come back. We're about to find out a lot more about this story. Good to see you.
Sure will, Tucker. Thank you.
So people make allegations against politicians all the time. Tara Reid has made an allegation against Joe Biden. Biden's campaign denies it. All of a sudden, though, there's some evidence backing her up. Tonight, yet another person, apparently she told contemporaneously. Why isn't the press covering this story? We'll get into that next. Now, another piece of corroborating evidence. One of Reid's former neighbors in California has come forward to say Reid told her about it at the time. Rich McHugh has been at the center of this story.